Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. Today I'm going to do something for the music theme that we chose for this month over on my Patreon. And I've had a number of ideas about what kind of a musical instrument I might do or what kind of a design that's inspired by music. And I've dismissed a few, I've looked at a few and thought, well, maybe, but I settled on a tambourine because I have this big white kind of flattish stone that looks like the top of a tambourine. So I think I'm going to do that. But before we get to that, I wanted to thank all of my subscribers. We just passed 3,400 people. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you're new here, you might consider subscribing to my channel. There's lots of content here. I'm heading towards 160 videos, many different tutorials and tips, lots of great information here, so you should check that out. Make sure to hit the like button before you leave as well. There's a number of other great things going on. Over on my Patreon, I have a number of people who have formed kind of a community, and we share ideas and talk about techniques and resources and things like that. And I do exclusive tutorials over on my Patreon for them. So if you're interested in that or some of the other ways to support the channel, check out the video description down below. There's Patreon, there's Buy Me a Coffee if you just want to kind of give me a tip because you appreciate what I'm doing. There's my website you can visit, and there's my merch store. And there's both merch on my merch store and my website as well now, so check those out. All right, well, with that being said, let's get started on the project. Okay, so this piece, I wanted to make a little tambourine, and I have a pretty stone. Where did I put that? Here. I have a pretty stone. It's some sort of agate that's kind of pretty much a whitish color. It's got a little bit of modeling in it, but I wanted something that was flattish, I should say, at least not too rounded, to be the top of the tambourine. And then I was going to bezel set it, and I'm going to make a border, not a border, kind of a platform that it sits on made out of 18 gauge sheet. And I'm going to make these little clappers out of 26 gauge sheet and probably 18 gauge wire for the little pins going up there. I think that's going to be the challenging part, is soldering those in without, having other things solder that you don't want to solder. So I want them to have free movement when I'm done. And then probably going to solder these things on before I do that. I'll probably do I think I'm going to use, on the bottom here, I'm going to close these off with a piece of 14 gauge square wire. So these holes that we cut are going to be kind of a semi-lozenge, and then we'll put a pin in there. But first, let's make a bezel for the stone. Let's go over the materials. I think 26 gauge sheet for the bottom, as well as for these little jingly things. I'm going to use, I always use 3/16 inch fine silver bezel pretty much, and I'll cut it down a little shorter for this one. I probably will use 26 gauge because it's a little bit thicker. And then, like I said, 18 gauge sterling sheet for the body of the tambourine, and 18 gauge round for the pins. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to throw some different metal on here, maybe some brass or copper for a contrast. I don't know. Sometimes I like that and sometimes I don't. So I'll see when it's going, how it looks, and how the process is working. So let's give this a try. So bezel first, I think. Maybe I should do this open backed. I wonder if that would look better. I think just to prevent the chance of me accidentally cutting too short, I'm just going to go ahead and make it round like this, or solder it together and then make it round. And then once it's all kind of towards the end stages, I'll file it shorter. So, same diff either way, but I think I run less a risk of making a mistake if I do it this way. So I just started going through my routine there, reshaping this, and I suddenly realized, oh yeah, I'm filming this. I need to have this in front of the camera. So sometimes I just get in the zone and I'm doing stuff. So if I ever move out of frame, I apologize for that. Sometimes there's things I can't really fix on the film. Okay, I think I'm going to do this open back, and in order to have a nice, since I'm soldering something on to the back of the whole bezel here, I think I need a nice lip for it to sit on, and so I'm going to use some 14 gauge square wire. I think if I can put my hands on where I stuck it. There's some. Okay, straighten it a little bit. Make a rough estimate on how long it needs to be, because you can break out your old geometry textbook, but 5 times diameter equals circumference, so 3.14 is pretty close to 3, so you can get a rough estimate. You go 1, 2, 3 diameters plus a little bit extra. Usually you have an extra 1/4 of an inch or so, maybe a little more. And that should get us close enough to where we don't waste a lot. But I don't have to keep this big, huge wobbly thing in my hand when I'm measuring. So. Alright, so we'll start by straightening this out a little bit. Worry about the one dimension, since I'm going to bend it into a circle in a second anyway. So we need to create that platform for the bottom here. Some people would put a piece of sheet on the bottom and then saw at the middle. I don't usually do that. The square wire, when you bend it, it has a tendency to twist if you've not done this kind of thing before. So basically I'm stopping and correcting a little bit every time it starts to do that sound. Ooh, I got a little too small there. Okay, once we have it kind of stuck in there so it's overlapping, then it's relatively easy to be pretty accurate so it fits in there snugly. Cut it off and then file it down a bit until it just fits nice. So let's see where we're at size-wise generally. That's not too bad. Before I solder that in, I want to make sure there's no wobbles here, like where it's doing this, because we want the stone to have a nice flat platform for it to sit on. You don't want your stone to be uncomfortable. I think I'm going to pinch this a little bit so I can solder these together nice and neat, since my filing kind of left them straight on. So we'll solder that, and then I'll straighten it back out, or round it back out, and then we'll put it inside of there and solder it back in. It'll be easier to get it flat that way too, because then you don't have multiple things moving around on you. Little bump of solder there. Looks pretty good. So it's important if, when you're doing this step, if you're doing a little step bezel for the stone, that you make sure it's pushed all the way down to the bottom so it's not tipped. And then what I'm really going to do here is I'm going to take some of these big pieces of solder. I'm going to put them in a circle. Let's see. That's pretty close. Okay, so let's get this fluxed. Make sure that it gets hot enough so that solder wicks along the entire seam. Okay, so we got our bezel first. Now, I actually measured. I did some ciphering before I did this. What I did was I drew this out to the size that the stone was, so it would be pretty close to that. And then in order to calculate how big of a piece of this 18 gauge sheet I needed, I did the pi times diameter thing, and then I actually double checked it by wrapping it around something round and laying it down there to see how close it got, and it was pretty good. So I'm not going to do that again. We can make any fine tuning. So my calculations, if you can see, there's a line scratch there. I cut a little extra just to make sure I had plenty, you know. But I'm thinking we'll be okay if we well, it's going to play a factor in where we decide to cut out the holes that we're going to need to cut out here. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do this yet. But I did make a little template for cutting out the kind of holes we need are these kind of lozenge-shaped holes. So I cut it out with a little X-Acto knife, and it's pretty close. So, but we still need to figure out, we need them to be symmetrically spaced around the piece. So you got to do some more calculating there. And so I think I don't know. I'm going to split the difference between those two, just to give myself kind of a chance of hitting it pretty close either way. But it'll be such a subtle difference if I'm slightly off that it'll be hard to notice, I'm thinking. So let's cut this about half as long as that gap between the two. So, and I also, when I did this, I cut it a little bit thicker than I need it to be, just because I wanted to have some room for error. So now let's measure this, and we can divide it by 6, I think would be right. I'm going to go with millimeters just because it's easier to divide and stuff like that usually. Pretty close to 80 millimeters, right? And so, if we have it, we need 6 spots for the posts to be. I don't want one to happen right there where the solder joint is, or do I? Six, 13.333. All right. So we'll just count that as the end. 10, 11, 12, 13, 3. 10, 11, 12, 13.3. 10, 11, 12, 13.3. I still had the eyes I had 20 years ago. 10. Okay, I think that'll work better probably. Alright, so I think I'm gonna make a little scratch across each of those places so I don't get misaligned anywhere. Let's keep it pretty straight. Okay, so those have to be the center of our lozenge shape. And I think I'm going to line I think it might be prudent to do the colored marker and then scratch it out of the marker. So let's just color this whole thing. There's a lot more measuring than I usually do for things. But I think for this one I got to be kind of precise. Okay, I think it's time to go give this a go on the saw. Not my strongest suit, but we'll give it a try. Okay, so somebody taught me a trick a while back that when you have to do a whole bunch of things that are going to weaken the structure of the overall piece and make it more vibratey when you're sawing other parts of it, if you leave these completely enclosed, things are less likely to vibrate and move around. So I'm actually going to punch a hole through each of these and do the two end ones at the end. And that way, hopefully, the structure of the piece will kind of become less flimsy. So I'm just going to drill some little holes here. Maybe. A lot of chatter on that one. Yeah, one got away from me there. It's all right, that'll polish off, or I'll put it on the inside. Okay. Put a little wax on here. Well, at least I stayed within the lines. That's an improvement. There will now be some long time off-camera filing to correct all my sawing mistakes. So stay tuned. Okay, so I did quite a bit of little cleanup filing with my jeweler's file like this. Trying to get things a little more symmetrical. And I did okay. They're not too bad. One of these days I will get enough practice to where my stuff will start pretty good. But this one on the end is a little bit wonky. That's not too bad. So when I was taking a little break, I had a kind of an epiphany. I was originally intending to cut off the top of this, mount little posts in the middle of each of these as spindles for the little jingly parts on the tambourine, but I think that might be making it more complicated than it needs to be. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to solder them to one inside part of this so they're kind of sticking out like that. That way I'll be able to slide them over, cut them off the right length, bend them in, and just pick solder them right there. So I think that'll probably work. I have some other thoughts as far as keeping things from soldering when I don't want them to solder. And we'll find some solutions to prevent that. Alright, so I kind of want to check to see how close we are on the same, because it needs to be the same diameter as the bezel that we made, or the same circumference pretty much. So that's how that looks neater. So I'm going to put that one to the outside. But we can just bend it around the ring mandrel. The curve going. Pretty close. We need to take this discoche off. that size-wise. That's just about as close as you can get, probably. So now I don't want my tambourine to be that thick, so I'm going to take one of these sides down quite a bit. A little bit of filing here. Just kind of doing a little general cleanup. I filed relatively thin compared to how it was. I think I kind of want to solder that together. What do you guys think? It's probably time. And I'll show you how I'm going to make the little janglers. Is that the official term of those? Janglers? So, you know what I might do is I might sweat a little bit of solder on the outside of this one here. Okay. Maybe I'll push this into one of these things here. Just to make sure nothing falls down. Nobody likes having part of their piece fall down. That should do it, probably. Okay, let's get that fluxed. So, I think I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I think the next step is I need to file this bezel down. I was originally just going to do a bezel, but I think I might do, there's a, on some tambourines they have a little strap that holds the head of the tambourine on. And I might do some little, I thought about using different metals, but I think I'm going to go with silver for these ones. But I'm going to use the bezel itself as just a kind of a very short cup, and then use those as prongs to hold the stone in. That's going to go in there. That's really pretty snug. It's nice. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So, but I do need some little prongs, since I filed that down to be kind of just a cup. So, I think probably just use some, I was thinking 18, maybe. I'm just marking where they'd be, directly between each of these. Okay, so I'm going to cut some. I'll need to be about, I'll cut them extra long. I'm going to pre-melt or sweat some solder onto these. One of the reasons I'm doing a tambourine is because on my Patreon every month I give them a themed challenge to make a piece of jewelry based on some particular theme. And this month's theme was music. And I've been thinking about a couple of different things, but tambourine was one of them. I was going to try and do 3 different things for this video, but it seemed a little overwhelming for a Thursday video to do 3 different pieces all in one. So I may do one of the other ones this weekend for okay. So the reason I put some solder on here is so I can just put these up against here. And I want to push them in far enough to where I know that they're sticking up above the bezel. And we'll snip those off to the same length when we go to set the stone and put the stone in and just kind of bend them over. These ones we can just file off or snip off at the bottom. Oh, you know what? I have a thought. That makes it secure when I put these, because I'm going to solder in. I really did a bad job on this one. But the other ones are pretty good. That was the one where the 2 sides joined, so I didn't do a very good job of shaping that one. But I'm going to be soldering the bottom side of one of these 18 gauge wires into the center of each of these inside of that little hole there. So just to make sure things don't move around, if I leave these on the bottom when I poke it into this, it might make it easier. So nothing shifts on me too much. I'm going to go ahead and file the ends of these. Looking at various ways to put this together without having issues. So I think the best bet would be to cut a bunch of little pieces of solder, put them on the pad here, and then I will hold these in the tweezers. I will flux these, and then I'll just heat them until I pick up a piece of solder, and then I can put it in the center of each of these like that. The risk here is that um, if I get it too hot, some of these previous solder joints will drop off. So what I can do, I made these long enough to where I can just kind of bend them over now that I have a couple attached, and then as I add a couple more, I'll bend them over again. I think that might give us more of a chance to keep things all together. After this, we have to figure out what kind of a bail we're going to put on, because the last thing we're going to do is put on the little jingly things. And I don't want to have to add a bail after those are on, so because there's going to be so many little moving parts that are unsoldered. It's going to be hard to keep them from soldering with something inadvertently when you go to add your bail. So let's add the bail next. I guess we got to make those little things first. So I'll show you how we're going to do that in a second. Okay, first I'm going to solder the ring closed. I might have made some music notes before. I don't remember them. I'm going to pick up a little extra solder. Just there's probably enough solder on that ring, but just to make sure we get a good solid join there. You do this without screwing anything up I already did. I think we got a good solid joint there. I think let's let that pick up for a little while we make the little symbol things that go on the sides. I'm just going to use some 26 gauge sheet. So this is a disc cutter, and they're pretty handy. I like to let's put it on top of a glove to cushion it a little bit, because I'm going to do some of these off camera, but I wanted to show you how I'm going to do them. So I'll cut out a couple here. What you do is you just make sure it's over the spot you want it to be, and then you hit it pretty hard. You try and get it in one hit, which I didn't there, and you see it left me with a little dimple, so I'll go back and punch some other ones out while I'm on the floor where I can hit it harder without knocking the table around. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so next stage is I'm going to find the center of each of these. It's weird how I never put a tool in exactly the same place ever. Alright, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to hit it with a center punch to knock a little hole and drill a hole through it. Okay, my biggest challenge is getting the center punch in the right spot. That's pretty good. That one was less good. Sometimes when I'm trying to drill little things, it helps if you stick them down somehow. Let's try putting some, I put some masking tape here. And I'm going to put some packing tape over the top. It'll be an experiment. We're doing it for science. So they both end up on the Dremel right there. So you can just work your way down a row and get a whole bunch of them. All right, and I'll pull those off of the Dremel now, and we'll do some other shaping. All right, for the next step, I'm just going to use a little dapping block here. Kind of round these out a little bit. Little symbols. Okay. Now let's fish out that. Actually, I'm going to go off camera, finish the rest of those, and then we'll fish it out and we'll get it ready to finish up. Any that have any holes that are a little filled, you can use a little diamond burr or something to ream it out a little bit. I think I'm gonna cut them all so they're a little bit long and then file them until they fit right in there. So I'm just gonna do that first. Just make sure they're pointing in the right direction too. One facing downwards, one facing upwards, I think. Bend it back up. So that's what I'm going to do all the way around here. Okay, so I got all those trimmed off and pushed back into the cavity with the little jingly things, symbols, whatever you call them on that. Probably should have looked that up. Okay. So I think I'm going to use easy solder on this last one because I really don't want to solder these things so they don't move. So I'm going to try to not push it past the temperature needed to get it to flow. So I have a little bit of easy solder here. I don't use it very often, but every once in a while, right at the end of a piece, when you're worried about something. When I do the solder the bail on, it'll be a kind of a totally separate piece, so I won't need to worry about these. I think I'm going to try and isolate the flux as well, so sometimes that helps when you have a situation like this. So I'm going to spray a little flux on the table here. And then I'll use a toothpick to apply it on the tops of those things. That way, you know, having things flow where you don't want them to flow. For the sake of time on this video, I'm going to do the bail off camera, but if you'd like to see how I make this type of bail, I'll put a link up there for the bail making video I have so you can get an idea. That'll just save time on this video so it's not quite so long. So I'll be back in a second and we'll solder that bail on. So I quick made one of these little kind of standard bails that I use, and I'm going to pick solder it around this ring, and then we'll let it pickle for a while. And then I will be cleaning up and polishing this piece, and then I'll show you how to set the stone. I don't know if I'm really trying to capture the exact essence of Tambourine, just kind of the general feel of Tambourine. Alright, I'm going to heat this up a little bit. Let's let it pickle. Okay, mostly polished up. There may be a little bit of cleanup to do still. I made the tines, cut them off pretty short, kind of made them pointy. And I bent them inwards a little bit while I was polishing so I wouldn't accidentally yank them off. It's always unfortunate if you break a prong off when you're polishing. So, okay, so I'm going to slide this in here. I'm just going to push these down. Alright, I think we've achieved what looks kind of like a tambourine. It even makes a little noise. So I'll get that cleaned up for some better pictures, and we'll put them at the end. Alright, I hope you enjoyed my music-inspired piece. It's a tambourine, and it's got little jinglies on the side. I wasn't 100% sure I was going to be able to do this without soldering things in the wrong place, but it turned out pretty good, so I'm happy. So make sure before you leave to hit the like button, and consider checking out some other videos here. I have tons of great content, whether you're a beginner or someone who's a little bit more advanced and is looking just for some idea stimulation. There's lots of great projects on here you could try. So feel free to share it with others. Leave comments for me. I love challenges. If you got an idea for a video, constructive criticism, all that kind of stuff is great. And thank you, all of you who've left such nice comments in the past. Those are really gratifying and very nice of you. So thank you so much. That makes me feel good to know that people are getting something out of this. So again, check out the video description links if you're interested in some other interesting content. And thanks again. I really appreciate you watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.